Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown, joined with my excellent co-host, fantastic James Rhodes. Jamesy, how was your weekend?
Yes, it was pretty good. Good family time, good United time. Always when that adds together, it tends to go pretty well. How about yours?
Very nice. Yes, much the same. Remember when I think it was how we were signing off on this podcast when we recorded last week. It said, "Let's hope the next time we speak, United are unbeaten in in these
Yeah,
two
yeah,
games,"
yeah.
and that is exactly what has happened. 7 goals.
Hmm.
Uh, and
Not bad, right? I
Not
mean,
bad
not
at
bad.
all. Nope, not bad at
Yeah.
all. And two very encouraging performances.
Yes,
What do you
it
think of them?
was. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it's I think in the last podcast we followed two draws, but I think we both felt that it was a bit better than it had been. Like, sometimes it's hard to see progress. I think we looked at that Sociedad game and we thought, there was the penalty against us. There was in the Arsenal game, there was chances we should have scored against a very good team, second in the league, and we both felt, yeah, maybe we need, it's getting better, but at some point we got to see a kind of a bit of a breakthrough, and I think this week was a lot closer to that. Sociedad was one of the best performances I think we've seen this season overall, just
Mhm.
all things considered. um the goals, the chances, the reaction as well. Again, going down to a penalty in the first couple of minutes.
Mhm.
That was a bit suspect as well. One that I thought wasn't a great call, and
A
I'm
bit.
thinking, here we go again. you know. To be fair, the referee was like, after that point in time, like he could not wait to give us calls after that. It was a nice feeling for once. You had to, you had a
Well, he
third
sort of made a
penalty where
rod for his own
Patrick
back, didn't he,
Dorgu.
though?
What's that?
He sort of made a rod for, sorry, man, this late is blending me.
Yes.
Sort of made
Yeah.
a rod for his own back, didn't he, with by giving that penalty and made the
Yes,
other
because he made
one.
it soft. Yeah, made it easy to call the later ones, but he did
Mhm.
at least call them. Even an extra one that Patrick Dorgu told him wasn't even had
Mhm.
himself said wasn't a penalty, which was a thoroughly decent thing to do. But at the same time, he's got to realize that United, we don't get calls that often, so you got to take them when you can get them. When you can
Which,
get them
by the
your
way,
way.
it should have been mentioned quite a bit more than what it actually
Yeah.
was. I don't understand how that just disappeared from
Huh?
the coverage and it was barely even given any type of acknowledgement at all. Regardless of what you think, that was still a very big gesture.
It was,
And
and how
did
many
not
how many
do it.
things have we heard in the opposite? How many times have there been articles about Bruno
Yeah.
Fernandes moaning and dive in or things like that? But when someone does something positive, it's like
Wait,
brushed
do you
under the
not
rug.
remember the coverage Garnacho got for celebrating getting the penalty because
Oh
he went
yeah,
like this?
yeah, yeah. I do
For
remember.
some
I do
reason,
remember.
that it caused more, that deserved more coverage than a young pro standing up and saying, "No, it's not a penalty." I
Mm,
mean, that betrays your,
yeah.
especially when Patrick Dorgu's a young pro. He's
Yes.
just in the United. He's looking for, he's looking for reputational status within the dressing room. He doesn't have the seniority in the team yet to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me is indicative of character, and I thought that I mean, it's easy for us here to sit and say what a great guy he is. If you'd have done that at 0-0, you'd have been like, "What are you doing?" Because actually, it looked like a penalty to me.
I know. I thought it was at first, and then I mean, you got to think to have
Mhm.
VAR, they would have fixed it anyway. So it is what it is. But no, and look, it was a thoroughly decent thing to do. Especially, he's been sent off for a red, in the Premier League not that long ago, and I have to comment on this again because in the game
Mhm.
at the weekend against Leicester, for
Yep.
the second game in a row, a player put studs up high into one of
Mhm.
ours in a
Yep.
stamp in the exact same fashion that Patrick Dorgu sent off for, and there's no call for it. And it's kind of unbelievable. It is. I don't know why, because it's like when we all watched Dorgu's tackle, even we were thinking, yeah, it's probably a red, and Amarim admitted it was a red at that time.
Yeah.
But the
Wasn't a
standard is not
controversial decision.
applied. The other way, it's just as clear, and it's like, whoop, just goes right past, and it's very strange. But regardless of that, United were able to build past it. Sociedad, very very good game, very good performance, good goals, good scoring. Bruno Fernandez, where would he be? Without him at this point in
Magnificent.
time, unbelievable. So and it was really great to see United get over the hump against a Spanish team in the Europa League because that has been definitely one of those things, and I think that that's been very good. Then against Leicester, I thought they continued it. It was a little bit shaky in the start. There was a lot of rotation, and but I what I thought was very encouraging is that even though he had to rotate some of the better performing players, guys like Joshua Zirkzee out of the starting lineup, things like that into the team, they still were doing it right. They scored another first half a goal, got a lead, got two goals, and then, were able to settle in a bit and just kind of hold what they have and then popped up with a third. And it was just, it's the kind of like you're just getting results where you need them. And you're getting shots and you're getting chances instead of what we've seen. No horrific errors, no tremendous mistakes, nothing. It's like I think to me, it's what it looks like is progress. It's nothing to be completely blown away from, but it's good performances when you need them, and it looks like a steady growth of progress. Through what the team needs, and we've needed to see that, right? You can buy into the long-term vision if you're seeing progress on the way, if you're seeing improvement as you go, if you're seeing things get better and better. And I think it was very good to see that, and that is something that we are seeing now.
Now you can definitely see that. I mean, when United were winning games in the past, it was look at the Leicester game, Harry Maguire offside goal in the last minute that came from some set piece, and it was a game where United didn't look dangerous in. They
Hmm.
weren't threatening through
Yep.
patterns of play. They weren't dominating possession. They weren't constantly. They were just waiting to make for the other team to make a mistake or to create something from a set piece or something like that,
Right.
where it felt like I'd said before, a win by court order. But now, the last few games I'm watching United, okay, they're doing well in possession. They look threatening. They should have beat Arsenal. I think they
Yep.
should have beat Fulham. A very very good performance against Sociedad at home, like we were saying after going a goal down,
Yep.
and not. We talked about this before a couple of weeks ago about how Ruben Amorim had said in this team who scores first is very, very
Yeah.
important because it affects. So United have done well, in my opinion, to against Sociedad at home, big game. It's crucial for United season. Pressure is on, and they responded by after going to go down by being comprehensive
Yep.
and enjoying a game from really start to finish is a
Yep.
rare treat. Away to Leicester, okay, Leicester are a bad team. We know that. But James, like we were just saying, United weren't getting a shot on target till the 70th minute against
Yes.
team. You know,
Yes.
and it didn't matter who they played. So
Yep.
you see United go away from home and win a competitive fixture, a Premier League fixture, Rasmus Højlund scoring, other players scoring, Garnacho breaking his duck, and other
Yep.
good, encouraging performances again, from Bruno and everything else. That looks like progress to me. It looks these are confidence boosting wins, and
Yep.
of course, just like everything with United, one of the bright sparks of the last couple of weeks has been the magnificent performances of young Aiden Heaven. And
Yes.
you're thinking, okay, Rome is burning, but there's a couple of positives, and then bang, he's injured. Like,
Hmm.
Ahmad was the only bright spark when were losing
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
He's out, and then Kobe Mainoo's out, and then
Yep.
Martinez is out, and then Lenny Euro's out, and you're like, I swear to God, like, United could sign Lamine Yamal tomorrow, and 3 weeks from now he'd be out for 9 months. It just
Yes.
is
It
unbelievable.
feels that way so many
I,
times.
uh,
Yeah.
the just I'm looking at him yesterday and I'm like, this deflated me completely watching him get injured because I was, really happy with how United were playing, how they were winning. I'm like, there's something sinister here. Like,
I
really, this kid.
I know it is unbelievable, and it's like as it's all going well, and it just out of the blue, and it's like a freak accident, freak injury type of thing too. It's not something predictable. It's not something manageable. It's not something you can hold to. It wasn't like he was overplaying and pulled a hamstring or even anything like that. It's just one of those things that happens, but it does feel like it just always happens, and I don't know how you get past that with United. It fills you with dread all the time, because it does feel like every time you're watching something good, there's just this random darkness lurking around the corner, ready to jump. And yeah, it's an interesting one.
Harry Mass got his debut yesterday.
Yeah, good
Um,
for him.
yeah, I must confess I didn't love Toby Collier at right wing back. I don't think he's particularly suited. United made the change and Mass came on, um, and went and slotted in the left back.
Yeah.
And decent performance from a kid.
Yeah, I thought he did well. I thought he showed at least, a bit of, like, how to put it, like, belonging, like he looks like he belongs on a pitch. He looks like he's got the, good attributes, good things that you'd want to see from a footballer. Obviously you want to see development. He looks like a young footballer who's just kind of getting going and getting there. But yeah, it's what you'd want to see out of a young footballer. Nothing too fancy. Good on the ball, good awareness, all of those things. Has a bit of growing probably to do, but it was good to see another young player, and United are going to need that obviously moving forward. It's part of the history, and I think that in recent weeks, obviously, it's been a positive, like we just discussed with Aiden Evan, but also with Cheeto, with Harry Amas, with that. These are good things that give us all something to look forward to, as well as we're going through all of this.
That aspect, James, to me doesn't get highlighted enough. City
Mm.
go out and spend 250
Mhm.
million in January and supposedly have the best academy in the country between them and Chelsea. United
Yeah.
had Aiden having on the field yesterday, a
Mhm.
£1 million signing from Arsenal's academy, essentially. And he, instead of slotting in, a 50 million centre back from launch, you're putting in a kid that you bought from Arsenal
Yep.
for $1 million, and he was exceptional. By the way, looks much
Mhm.
better. No disrespect to Kusanov, but I wouldn't swap Aiden Heaven for Kusanov
Yeah, me neither.
right now. And of course, that's a consequence of the fact that United's other left foot centre back is out injured, and now the replacement that came from the academy is now
Yes.
out injured, right? Which absolutely unbelievable. Our left back is suspended for something that wasn't deemed a sending off offence yesterday.
Yep,
So
or
now
against Arsenal. Yep, 2 games
so
in a
now
row.
you've got
Mhm.
yes, young Harry Moss, and you're
Yep.
losing. You're only signing, and well, Dorgu and I obviously haven't. They're both out of the game yesterday. One the injury, one the suspension, and then you're bringing on Cheeto Obi. There's no Omar Mamouche. You're bringing
Yep.
on a young kid that came out of Arsenal's academy.
Yep.
8 months ago. I mean, I don't think enough is made. Collier's coming on. I don't think enough gets made of the fact that United are reaching for young teenage kids to throw in
Yep.
at this level, because, James, there's no other team in the top four that's doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
Arsenal have young kids in there too, but not to this degree, and don't have to deal with this injury crisis on this level.
No, for sure they don't, and it's a justifiable reason why it's may take a while, why it may take some time. But the interesting part about it, of course, is that United are doing a bit better in recent weeks, and I have to say, I think it has been handled really well on that front, by Ruben Amorim, because I think 2-3 months ago there was a lot of calls to start putting the youth in. United were really bad 2 or 3 months ago. They didn't have any kind of foundation, I think, and I think, at least now there's something there in these games that we can see where you can put a Harry Amos and it doesn't look out of place. It looks at least like, even though United shouldn't have to be relying on that, they're doing it, and he looks like, all right, he can do a job. He knows the job. There's the team is kind of a bit settled around him, and that helps. So, I think it's the right time to do that. And it is something as well that I hope United do more of through the rest of the season, especially in the Premier League. There's not much to play for there. In the Europa League, obviously, you've got to go all out. You have to start feeling a bit optimistic. Like United at least have a chance at winning the Europa League at this point. But the Premier League is the Premier League, and I think we'll continue to see more young players go in there. There is a difference between 13th, 14th, 10th, 11th, but not much. And it's probably worth the value of seeing what some of these young players can do, because it's still, especially if we don't win the Europa League, it's still going to be limited in going into next year. There is a limitation on what can be done. And we're going to, need some of these young players to get in, but also, I think there's a sense of pride in being able to do so, and having some of these young players come through and be a part of United, that I think is something to hold on to. And I think again, other clubs aren't doing it, and if United can do it and be successful, and have that academy really produce what they wanted to produce, and all of that, then I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, look, I think the academy's built United out so many times in the past.
Yep.
It's a massive jump, to be fair, for these young players to play week in, week out. And look, I don't know what the long term future is for Hamas, sorry. And given that Diego Leon is going to come obviously in the
Yes.
summer, so you've got
Yep.
another young left back. Whether he'll be considered first team ready, I don't know. It's going to be another tough adjustment for him. It's a good position for United to be in, because in a little bit, shortly in this podcast, we'll get to what some of the stuff that Jim Ratcliffe talked about
Yep.
last week. But when you look at but Luke Shaw and the prognosis on his future,
Yeah.
I think that is been a problem position for too long for United. So very, very encouraging to see these young players getting their chances. And with each passing game, James, they adapt to the pace, they adapt to the rhythm,
Yep.
and it doesn't feel so new, and you start feeling like a first team player. So they certainly will improve. Um, we talked about how important the goal was for Rasmus Højlund for confidence
Yes.
yesterday. Very, very, very
Sure.
important. I felt terrible for him on Thursday against Sociedad, because it just felt like nothing would go in. We could take the goalkeeper off, and it's just, when you feel like that as a striker, it's just exasperating, because it just feels like you're never going to score. It's in light of everything he's gone through, I thought he took the goal really well yesterday.
Yeah, he did. He did. And I thought that between Thursday and Sunday were two better performances from him in his overall game as well. He was getting himself in more of the positions. He was doing a lot more of the movements, a lot more of the runs, a lot more of the things that you want to see from him. And so I think that we have to compliment his overall game improving in that respect, and making things happen. He was winning more duels, helping in the build up a bit more, but also putting the runs in, those runs in the channels, to find those spaces, to be the out ball, to get on the run, which is what, of course, he scored from. They are fundamental to this team, and they're still going to be a part of it. You can heap loads and loads of praise on, Gyökeres, who's scoring a lot of goals at Amarim's old team for how he played. A lot of them are like that. A lot of them are on the run. It doesn't always have to be slow plodding possession play, and you're gonna get chances like that. And I thought he's been doing a lot better at those movements, and it's a double aspect of doing the things that are gonna create the chances for you, or put yourself in a position to receive the ball to score, and then taking it, and taking one of those will help the confidence a lot. Um, and hopefully encourage him to continue to do the good actions that he's been doing, as it will reward you with a goal at the end of it. So happy to see that. Happy to also see Garnacho break his
Mm-hmm.
his dull streak, especially he scored and it was offside.
Mm-hmm.
And then he managed to still get a goal the other way. I think Ruben Amorim has realized what I think a lot of us think and have seen as well, which is that Garnacho is a much better player on the right for whatever reason than
Mm-hmm.
he has been on the left. He tends to, whatever it may be, it helps him. Maybe it helps him on the angles. Maybe it helps him put some more variety into his game, rather than cut in, shoot, cut in, shoot. even though he scores, a goal that way, he's been doing the last 3 games, I think, are his best performances all year, in general. And it's been from the right. He's been sharing the ball, he's been passing, he's been creating, he's been
Mhm.
involving himself in different ways. And sometimes it's just different angles of looking at the game. You have to be a little more creative with your solutions and strengths. And I think that that's been a big improvement. He's done really well there. So it's good to see him be rewarded with a goal too, because all the good works, the help, the support of others, you got to score goals as a forward to get that feeling back. And I thought that was good to see as well. They both needed that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously important for Garnacho. His confidence has been taking a hit too. I think that January was a difficult month for him. He was unsettled. I think he wanted to leave in January, didn't get the move, and I think it's taken him a while to recover from what happened and to settle down again. Obviously, United aren't an easy team to shine in, but we've acknowledged that. But it's been frustrating elements of his game, James, where
Mm,
he's shooting when he should be passing,
yes.
and pass selection, and even the goal that was disallowed yesterday. I mean, he really shouldn't be offside there because it's
Yes.
not difficult to stay onside. It's just a basic
Yep.
concentration issue. It's look across the line. Whatever you do, don't be offside because that's basic. But okay, you make
Yep.
mistakes. Fair play to him. He took his goal quite well, and being on the right with his body shape as it comes on his right hand side, that ball ends up in the near post bottom corner. If that ball falls to him on the other side, he's trying to put it in the other side of
Always.
the net.
Yes. Yes.
So I think in that sense, he is definitely for me a better player on the right and
Mm.
much more suited to playing with a striker on the right.
Yeah, I think his
Um,
eyes are up more to the middle where there's other players instead of just on. It's kind of like one of those funny things where, like, if you do something with one hand too much, the old like training trick of tie it behind your back and force yourself to use the other hand, because then you learn a little bit more variety in your ability to do something. So it's an interesting.
Yes, I've learned to use my left hand and my right hand sometimes when I put it asleep, and
Yeah,
it goes numb. And
yeah.
then sometimes just you rotate onto your left hand. We've all done that. So I know what you mean. So ambidextrous, I
Are
think
we
it's called.
talking about the same thing here? I don't
Talking about Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Anyway, so swiftly moving on there. So I think all in all, very very good performance. We can't fail to mention the Bruno goal, of course.
Yes.
And his classy response to the Roy Keane criticism, which is
Again.
exactly
Yeah.
how you respond to that. You know, King was a great player, but one of the things that annoys me no end is his back in the day shit.
Yeah.
We got booed off here for when we drew. First of all, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I
Right?
know.
Secondly, were United fans wrong for supporting their team when they were relegated? Because hey, they booed just 5 years before that. United were winning European cups, and leagues, and stuff like 6 years. It's so should they not? This is
Mm.
stupid, and you need more than you. Keane's always caustic with his criticism and comparing things to when he was there. Man United are a
Mhm.
completely different football club,
Yep. Yep.
and it's a completely different era, and everything is different. And he's just this constant back in the day shit. Is first of all, I don't know if anyone's ever watched a full episode of The Overlap because I never have, right? And to be honest, I don't really, when I see Joey Barton howling at the moon over punditry, my next question is, who the fuck watches punditry? I don't. Do you sit and watch what they're talking about half time? I don't.
Yeah,
Like,
I
who
don't,
cares?
yeah. Yeah. No, it is irritating, and it's unnecessary, and, it is a different world, when you critique Bruno Fernandes and you compare him as a captain to yourself and Roy Keane, you also have to bear in mind who was around you, Roy Keane, when you were playing a team. What were the players around you? Because a lot of them were your level or better.
Working was
Um,
relegated with Forest, mate.
yeah, when he
I
was at
mean,
United, he had an amazing, amazing team around him, amazing players. who could always pick up the slack and did a lot of work, and it's like it's just unnecessary. But Bruno has always responded well. He's always doesn't take it personally, and I think I'm so amazed by what he's done here, because I personally had definitely started to think, I didn't know if he could adjust his game to control, to the ways, to what we're seeing now, where he still provides a huge output, but at the same time has been so reliable, I guess. There were times in the past where Bruno was like, it's a Bruno game or it's not, and I'm not seeing that at all. It's consistency every single game, of whether even he's scoring or assisting, of providing, being the best player probably on the pitch most time and time again. And it's really impressive. And I wasn't sure if he could do that after the last year and a half, because there's definitely some long gaps and stretches, but he's done so. And I think he's really dragging the team with him. And he's really, it's just, yeah, I have a lot for Bruno, and I truly, truly hope we can win some more things with him here, and that he will be here for at least a few more years, and that we can win some things with him here.
I remember when United won the title in 92, 93. There was two reasons that, well, a number of reasons, but two things that really stood out for me why I really wanted it to happen as soon as possible. Is I wanted
Mm,
Brian Robson to get
right.
Premier League winners medal, and I wanted Sir Matt Busby to see United win the league again before, he was obviously aging, passing on. He's obviously aging, and before he passed on, I wanted to see
Yep.
United back at the summit. I would love for Bruno Fernandes's loyalty to get rewarded by winning
Yep.
a Premier League, European Cup, something that says thank you, because this
Mhm.
guy could have left numerous times,
Yes.
and I can't imagine United without that quality. Because when you don't function well as a team, individual quality is really important. Which, of course, one of the
Yeah.
reasons why losing Ahmad was such a blow. And there's just so many moments where he pulls United out of holes by coming up with unbelievable goals. And there's not a team in the Premier League wouldn't take him. And I can't say that about too many United players. So
Yep.
I would love to see his loyalty get rewarded. Um, I want to shift the conversation on to the Jim Ratcliffe interviews last week
Yes.
that he did. It's so a number of comments that he made headlines. Whatever you think of Jim Ratcliffe, and I have my criticisms too, there has to be something said for the fact that this is an individual that's willing to explain his decisions,
Yep.
whether you like him or not. Um, he's the first owner United fans have had in recent history they can talk back to.
Mhm. Yep.
And he is someone that's willing to do interviews and at least be transparent and explain things. I probably bizarrely think he should dial it back a bit, because inevitably you're going to get an owner that's going to say things clumsily,
Yeah.
that's going to cause problems, especially someone that
Yeah.
doesn't have experience of owning a football club. And I
Yep.
think he said things that, quite frankly, aren't helpful. But Casemiro, and we've talked
Sure.
about this
Yeah. We've
before.
talked about that, about comments about players, and I think they were probably taken a little bit different to what he was meaning, but that's what
I
will
know,
happen when you're
I agree.
saying, yeah. Yeah.
But next time, James, they're also going to be ready for him, because they're not going to
Oh,
let
yeah.
him softball, get away with the Glazer stuff, everything. So
Yeah.
inevitably, the next interview will be the questions that he didn't get asked,
Yep.
and there's a lot of those. And, he needs to be careful, because eventually he's going to get cornered on stuff where
Yeah.
he's not going to be able to softball stuff
Yeah.
away about the Glazers and investment and
Yeah.
stuff, because there's a lot of follow ups you could have had to that Gary
Yeah.
Neville. Oh, do we buy a footballer or do we give someone a free lunch? Jim, why can't you give me, a zero sum issue between, do we pay
Yeah.
37 million in dividends or do we buy a footballer? Because
Yeah.
that to me is far more anyway.
Yeah.
But what's your take on Jim Ratcliffe's interviews?
Yeah, well, first thing is that, again, for a long, long time, right? What one of the biggest criticisms of the Glazers that has slightly been forgotten, and I think isn't acknowledged as much, was the lack of communication, right? It was one of the main things that, fans. I remember sitting there and people saying, we want to hear from them. We want to hear reasons. We want to know what is going on, and it's like, you cannot just be an absentee owner, no communication. And I remember, and we've all talked about it so many times, that 10 years without an 20 years without an interview, whatever it was, all of these things. And like you said, I think it is admirable, even if not all of it is what you want to hear, for an owner to come out and explain. And it doesn't mean you're going to agree with every decision. We never are. No, I don't think there's anybody that's going to agree with every single thing any other
Of
person
course,
does
mate.
in life, especially, an owner and things like that. He admitted things like, when you talk about the financial stuff, he admitted things like it was worse than they thought when they got in. Like he said, we had a picture of it, but when we got in, certainly it was a lot worse than that even. And that they had to even scale up on a lot of the things that they were planning to do from a
Does that
cuts
not concern you,
perspective.
James? Though,
What's that?
does that not concern you that whenever you're buying, putting billions into an asset that you're going to buy, surely you do
Yeah.
forensic due diligence where you really shouldn't be surprised about how bad the finances are?
I think it's like the way he put it, which makes some sense, is there's a lot of moving parts and things. So you get stuff like player contracts, based on how are the incentives structured, things like that. I guess the question is how much
Mm.
access did they get? Truly, how much access did they get? You'd think you'd have access to absolutely everything, but we don't know, at
If-
that
if-
point in time. But it's like, the Glazers, who knows, what all did they actually get access to? There were some summits, obviously, where I think both the Qatari team and the Ineos team were able to come in, look at the finances. But when a club or a business is able to prepare their finances to show you something, it
But aren't
often
they
looks a
legally
lot
filed on the
different.
SEC? James, aren't they legally filed on the SEC?
Well,
So
they're not. So like you take us right now, right? Like all these things like player contracts, all of that. We don't know what they're paying. We don't actually have the details of those things, filed publicly. And so there's a lot of stuff in there. But obviously I think part of it was also just explaining, whether how 100% true that was, and how much of it was a bit of an explanation of like, okay, yeah, things are actually really bad, but also maybe a part of sneaking into that is that, if we're in 14th and we're not doing so good, then it gets really bad because
mm,
there's little clauses and things, and you're losing money here, and you're planning for 10 million without to lose 10 million on Adidas this summer because we're not going to be in Champions League, and all those little things kind of add up, and all of that. But I thought in general it was decent. I thought it was decent, at least to the explanation of things. I thought it was transparent, um, on that front of what was being done. Um, I thought it wasn't like demeaning. It wasn't like I didn't think it was like a demeaning thing. There's been comments or times when it may have sounded like demeaning to fans or anything, but I thought there was some good acknowledgement and recognition of the issues. I think in general, most people that I spoke with or looked at on the scale of things probably took it more positive than negative, that interview. Most of the people, at least that I spoke with or heard from or looked at in the communities that I'm a part of. So I thought it was decent. I mean, look, there's obviously it's like execution. I think that's where most people are at, is that a lot of the plans, a lot of the words, they sound fine. What we obviously need to see is positive execution. I liked, owning up on mistakes, where he said, look, we hired Ashworth, it's a mistake. We blew it. We made a mistake, right? It's like at least the acknowledgement of that and not explaining it away. Not that there could be much explanation for it, but sometimes it's fine to be as simple as saying you made that mistake. Obviously, you have to stop making those mistakes moving forward. Um, but at least, not trying to justify it too much, you know what I mean, is a good thing. Because when people make mistakes and they spend too long trying to justify it and say it's not an error, that worries me usually more than when someone just says they fucked up, basically. So
nah, look,
I was okay with it, in
you're going
general.
to make mistakes, James, because building a football club is not an exact science,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There is, you know, there's a lot of moving parts in this that, and you need, to be honest, to get it all right, a bit of luck too, right? So
Mhm.
you need certain, things to come
Yes.
together at the right time with the right people,
Yep.
and some of it's luck in the sense that your rivals are declining. It's the right time, the right things come together, the right moment, and then, you get magic, you get alchemy,
Yep.
and so in their defense, lately, it's you're
Yep.
going to make mistakes, right? And there's a difference between making mistakes trying to do things right than mistakes that are a feature, not a bug. Do you know
Right.
what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yes.
these are this is an expected outcome because you're not trying to do it right. So
Yes. I get
I
you. Yeah.
I can forgive people trying to do things right, making mistakes. It all depends how you're led, of course. I think there was. I don't, when any of us were banned United, they singled out Casemiro as bad business. I just don't think this helps
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, and I understand that he's not necessarily criticizing Casemiro,
Hmm.
but it's very hard to divorce yourself from, the reputational. If my hired a company was being consistently, used as an example of pop business,
Yeah.
I would bother anyone. I just
Yes.
don't think that's helpful.
For
And
sure. And
you
I
know,
thought that was one of the things in this one where he wasn't really saying it that way. It was just maybe it was a little clumsy. I think what he was basically saying was like, when he mentioned all these players, because he mentioned young players like Rasmus Højlund as well. I think he was basically saying, like we're still spending the money for all these players that we didn't buy. So it's like the squad isn't really in our image. We haven't really been here long enough to make it all ours in from a responsibility standpoint. But it's understandable, but it is different with an owner when they mention those because of how it might be taken, from people for sure. And um yeah, I don't think he called them shit players or anything, even slightly like that at this point in time. I mean, it is funny because before he was even linked to United, he has a habit of this for whatever reason. He talked about United's bad business, talked about how they wasted money on Fred. He said that like 2 years before even purchasing United. He's made some of those comments in the past. I thought this one was probably different in its intention, but still, I would tend to agree. It's not you know, it's not helpful. At the same time, fans do it all the time and say, "Hey, well,
yeah, but
call
fans
out
are
all this
fans. Yeah,
stuff."
no one cares what we
I
say. We're
know,
not
I know,
speaking
I
from a
know,
position of authority.
I
Any
know.
fan can say what they want. I just
Yeah,
don't think. But
yeah,
nonetheless, I commend him for at least making himself available. There was a few comments in there that he said if it was to get as bad as the Glazers, he would question whether this was something he wanted to pursue.
yep,
Um, it will only get as bad as the Glazers if you run the club as bad as the Glazers.
yep,
So,
yep,
if you run the club in a way that's commensurate with its identity and its culture and its values, failure can happen. That's okay. But there has to be a belief from the fans that there's, a duty of care being taken with the club. Like, this
yep,
is the thing that I felt that Jim Ratcliffe, I really questioned the wisdom of this, where he was saying, the Glazers have let people run the club, and this is what happened. This no. If Ed Woodward was doing a bad job, why didn't he sack
it's
him?
on the Glazers. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
no, it's not to me that's a major indictment that you
Yeah,
are rentier capitalist sitting in Florida, taking no duty of care to how the football club was run, to
yep,
protecting its finances, to protect its future. You are responsible.
yep,
You own that company. I own my company. Whatever happens, I'm responsible for, right?
yep,
Not the people I hire, because I
yep,
have the ability to remove them. They don't have the ability to remove me. And so
yep.
that's a derivative of the Glazers' priorities, and the Glazers, you know, they never sacked any, Ed. Richard
Yeah,
Arnold was obviously someone that, that was a result of the takeover, of course, but they
correct.
hired him.
Yeah, and Woodward walked away. Yep, himself.
So
Yep,
yeah, and so to me, like that, um, I understand he's in a difficult predicament and trying to, like walk a tightrope between, I don't want to say deference, but not disrespecting or causing conflict,
yeah,
and trying to blame people that aren't at the football club anymore, which is what happens. Um,
yeah.
I must. I wonder how the Glazers feel about him doing these interviews, because I can't imagine they like it too much.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance, right? Because I think as fans, like we would be really happy to have him say as much negativity as he could about the Glazers as possible, right? It would make everybody happy.
As
But
we're doing this,
but
just an announcement. United are
yeah,
announcing 5% ticket price increases for
yeah, I
adults.
was gonna mention it for the adults, and for the kids, it's frozen. So I think he mentioned in an interview just on that basis that there would be ticket price increases, but
Okay.
not. It didn't say how much because he didn't know at that point in time, or they hadn't decided. And then I think during the stadium announcement, he mentioned that they're talking about things like maybe they freeze the under 16s prices. I think I'm not gonna obviously speak for anybody on NAS, but I think that's probably about as minimal a price increase as has been done when there has been a price increase, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but
Well, it's 5%
it's
on top of the other increase. So, you would have to include both increases in that. So
what's
it's
the
five.
other increase? Just
So obviously they went to a £66 ticket earlier in the season. So now they're going to do 5% on top of that.
no, so no, that was
Or
where
am I misunderstanding it?
yeah, so there's not a 66 pound price increase. So yeah, so that I don't think was the case, and it's been a bit of a subject
They
of
didn't change the
confusion.
ticket prices to £66.
No, he actually explained it in the interview that it was just for it was specifically just for these certain tickets that were returned and then being resold, where they were returned after they were purchased on a discount and resold. He said it was something like 500 tickets per game.
But what?
And there was some argument over that maybe it was a little bit more like 750, but it was not an actual price increase on like the standard cost of ticketing. So I think this 5%, I'm fairly confident on this is just 5% over whatever people were generally paying for the season tickets this season. And otherwise there's no difference in the price changes.
Okay, I must be completely misunderstanding what I've been reading because I've been reading that. Okay, I accept that's my misunderstanding. Then I'd have to go back, but
It is a little
I
confusing.
heard what he said,
People
but I
try to
heard, but
explain it, and I don't totally know, but I do know for sure because I was
well, I thought it
asking.
was a one-off game, but it's actually that's been implemented ticket pricing because I know people that buy tickets at United and they've been faced with this more than once. So
Right,
I don't
right.
know,
Yep.
but
Yeah, so it's like if you're buying tickets now, there are tickets that have been returned by season ticket holders, and those are being resold now at this $66. That's what that 66 was. So if someone was trying to buy a ticket today, they'd probably be paying 66 for one of these games, for one of these return tickets from a season ticket holder. But the price for season ticket holders, however it was, hasn't actually changed at all from like
well,
what
they were
they.
bought last season. They bought the start of the
Correct,
season.
correct. So
I'm
it's
like, yeah, of
that
course, they're
same
not going to
price
ticket
is only
prices.
going up
Season ticket
5%.
prices.
That's my understanding of
All right,
the
I
news.
gotta look at this because this just
Yeah,
came
yeah.
out, so I haven't had a chance to really
You'll have
go
to read
through it
through that a
and
bit.
see exactly what it says here because we're all doing this right now as we
Yep,
speak.
yep.
Um, Jadon Sancho. So lots of discussion that they do not want to exercise the fee, the mandatory purchase fee. So there's been a lot of question marks about whether this is legally permissible, and I've even had people ask me, well, if Chelsea and United agree to a mandatory fee, Jadon Sancho has no choice. No, no, no. A human being always has a choice on who they give their labor to,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it should be. Um, but so Chelsea may end up just paying a penalty
Mhm.
and sending him back to United, which I think would be a really um, it would be very damaging to Jadon Sancho. And
Yeah.
for United, the question is, can you sell him to Germany for 25 million? Can you sell him somewhere else? I don't know, James, because I mean his form has just been so poor.
Yeah. Look, and I think that this is a tricky one to discuss here because there's a couple of parties' reputations on this. I think there are almost very, very often in any mandatory buy clause option, there's always like clauses relating to different things and all of that. And it's probably not that unusual that a team can avoid a mandatory buy clause by paying a significant penalty. The thing about it is that not only would it affect Jadon Sancho, but I think it would actually. The reason why I don't think it'll happen is it would also reflect really poorly on Chelsea. When a team agrees to do a mandatory buy with a club, which is a big part of business. And when you're dealing with smaller clubs, not United, and you're buying players from them, that's like their income, their revenue. They're really reliant on that money, right? That is a big portion usually of their, if you're buying from a second tier German club or one of these young players that Chelsea keep buying from every club in Europe, which we'll talk about in a minute. Um, those clubs need that money. They rely on that money really heavily and those agreements. And if you're doing something and you start to appear unreliable on following through on your commitments, I think it can be potentially very damaging to a club in that respect when dealing with some of these other clubs. That being said, yeah, if
Chelsea
he's
just
if
buy their
they
club.
what's that? Or they
Chelsea
just buy
just
their
buy their
club. Yeah,
club.
they'll just buy their club. Yeah, there you go. Exactly, like they've done with Strasbourg or whatever, right? They'll just buy their club. But no, I think it can be damaging. But certainly for Jadon Sancho, it would be extremely damaging. Um, I think he could be sold to somewhere else. Um, there's no way anybody else is giving him anywhere near his contract. That complicates the matter for as well. Um, yeah, it's a weird situation. I still believe he will go to Chelsea, even if they want to move him after that, they can somewhere else to potentially get some return on it. But it's a weird one. It is a weird one. And his struggles are certainly not assisting the matter, in that respect at all.
Yeah, and the wisdom of his freedom post, like to me, is hard to reconcile because
Mm,
first of all, you're making an adversarial relationship with, United fans, which
yes.
still your employer, and it's a fight you can't win, and it's never
Yep.
going to help you. And to me, there's just certain things you don't do, and
Yeah.
he's in a really strange situation now where the dream move that he wanted where it was supposedly going to reignite his career hasn't happened,
Yep.
and now he's in a situation where nobody really wants to sign him because he's too much of a risk. It's at that salary point, at that wage point, and at that price point. um Really
He could
sad
probably
for
go to Como, but
but it's actually really sad for a guy who
yeah.
does have a lot of talent, but I
Yep.
just for some reason he's never been able to reproduce it in England, and I think in the he's just suited to German football or football at a slower pace or played different. I mean,
Mhm.
you looked at him in the Champions League last season; he was exceptional.
Yep.
So there's a player in there. Um, I personally I never understood the move to Chelsea because he needed to go to a team where he was going to play every single week. I know he plays quite a bit at
Yeah.
Chelsea, but where he was, a key fundamental part of the team, that was never going to happen at Chelsea.
Yep.
And I never understood that move, but
I mean, you look at the
it would make a
comparison
difference
to
for him.
Marcus going to Aston Villa here, and he's back in English squad. He's
Mhm.
producing. He's playing every game. He's in the Champions League, and it's just it was when the news came out in the initial of Rashford going to Villa, you could look at it and think, you know what? It seemed maybe unconventional at first, but then the more you looked at it, you thought this actually could be a great move for him. Really good for his career, and really good for Villa as well. He'll be heavily supported. He's not in Chelsea's a really weird club. It's a very, very weird club, and it's a graveyard for a lot of players in a similar way to United,
Mhm.
except probably even worse because they just keep buying on top of it. They never stop. And you forget they even have players. I mean, they paid 100 million for Mudrik and he's banned for doping. We don't even hear about him anymore.
For
Like the
yeah.
guy's career practically doesn't exist. It's a very, very strange club, and it's very dangerous. And they'll sell players and managers and do whatever they want, and you'll never hear about him again. It's very strange. So a weird move, and it is unfortunate for him because I never wish people failure. And I would hope that it would have worked out better for him, but it hasn't, and so we'll have to see what happens with that.
Lastly on that, they also signed Quenda
Yes,
midweek, which
on a
to be
random
honest.
Tuesday in March.
Yeah, and they're going to leave him there for a year, I believe. So that was also an issue for Sporting.
Yep.
My own view was of United of their needs. The right wing back position was not the number one for me.
Yeah, and I think that, essentially their hope with Kenda was that he's a really top talent. So, you kind of get in a position United where they want to sign the best young players in going
Mhm.
this approach of signing young players and talents. And so he was obviously someone they rated really highly individually as a player for his characteristics, his qualities, and all of that. And that's fair enough. Obviously, they felt I think they were just as a bit surprised by this, um,
Mhm.
as any of us were. I think they felt pretty good on this one, but at the same time, another 8-year contract from Chelsea with a loan back. I mean, it's hard to compete with these types of things when they're doing this for young players. You're talking about a young player at just turning 18 who's now going to be set for life financially. They're not on huge contracts in Portugal, those young players, not at all. I mean, you get plenty of people who at a regular day job make as much as some of them, those young players in Portugal. So you're talking about a huge, huge amount of money that is staring someone in the face, a guaranteed long-term career, and it's hard to compete with that with the young players. And so I don't really blame United for not getting it or for getting beaten to it. And when somebody's making that kind of offer, we're obviously not in a position United where we're going to buy someone and loan them back for a year. We need players now, not in a year from now. Um, and it's another one though where I still
Well,
question
and
a
he also
little
wants to
bit.
play right wing.
And here's the thing about it. That part of it I question a little bit. One, because again, Chelsea have so many wingers. But two, if you're buying into a manager at Chelsea's vision 18 months before you're set to join, odds are that manager's not going to be there in 18 months because that's Chelsea. I can't remember the last time a manager's lasted more than a couple of years at Chelsea, even the good ones. So I have some questions about the judgment of taking that move from him for his long-term future, but I do get why that would make United unappealing because he was going to play right wing back for Amram. That's what they wanted him for. That was the appeal, for him for us. So I understand it, and United will have to look at a different plan, and one of those plans will definitely be potentially looking to the youth level where they very likely have a player of a very similar nature to Kenda, not that much younger than him coming through, that I suspect will be pushed up a little bit quicker through the ranks now.
It's just, you look at people like João Felix and what have you. If you get that move wrong from Portugal, it is devastating for your
Yes,
career.
yes.
And I look at Quinn and I'm thinking, okay, Viana, sporting director Viana is going to Manchester City. City sold Kyle Walker. They need another
Hmm,
player in that position. Why is he turning down Ruben Amorim, who gave him his
yep,
debut? Why would City not be pursuing him? Would they need a player, young player, explosive of that type of quality on the right? And why would you accept staying at Sporting over the year when you could have gone and played in the Premier League right now?
right.
You
Yep,
know, um, I don't know, maybe it's because of the World Cup or something. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't getting
don't know.
playing time guarantees. I don't know. It's hard to say. But to me, it's. I mean, I think you need an alternative to Dallo. I do,
Yeah,
but there's other for me with a limited budget, far more pressing needs in United's team that need to be addressed. That have to be the focus,
yeah,
and they've some big decisions to make this summer if they can win the Europa League, James, which seemed like a ridiculous to me. Pre Sociedad draw, I was like, that's not going to happen. Now I'm like, okay, do you know what?
well,
United,
it
if they continue to improve, like and the confidence comes into the team,
yeah,
then that's a very winnable. Lyon will be a tough fixture,
yes,
but
yes.
but you know what? It's a very winnable competition, and if United can get in the back door to the Champions League, it changes so much.
Oh my god, it does. It does. It really does. And is this a weird one? United have won 5 games in a row in Europa, and they're still the only undefeated team in all of Europe in European competitions. They finished 3rd in the Europa table. They've won, I think, every, in terms of fixtures, right? I mean, you count the 2 fixtures over the 2 legs for Sociedad, right? They've been winning games. They're winning games in Europa. They're performing well. We're starting to see the progress come into the Premier League too, and I thought they would have beaten on the balance of the 2 legs. I thought they were not just it wasn't even close with Sociedad. They were
Mm.
significantly better than them, not even in the same ballpark as a team. So, yeah, a little bit of confidence, and then you have as well, they've done this almost at their lowest. Ugarte's injured, Yoro's injured,
Yeah.
Maguire injured, Kabi Mainu injured. All of those players will be back after the break. All four of
Mm.
those players will be back after the break.
Possibly we might see Mason Mount on the field, those on the bench.
Mason Mount made it on the bench, so it's like a fifth player. There's five actually contributing first teamers who are not there that will be there for this Europa run after the break, at least. There's even talk of Ahmad being back before the end of the season if United can make it that far. So,
James, you
who
know how it
knows?
is. We record this podcast when the international break's over. Half of those players will look like they just came back from Dunkirk.
Well, a
We'll
bunch
be
of them haven't been called up, which is an interesting, positive too. Let's hope they don't get injured on holiday and in vacation.
yeah. If Ronald Koeman's not calling you up, take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Um, but all right, matey, we'll leave it there. Thanks to all of you as always for downloading the podcast, for tuning in. If there's something to record, there's a reason to record next Monday. We will.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll see you after the international break. Take it easy, matey.
Just see you later.
Cheers, folks.